I'm standing right now in what used to be Lake Mendocino in California. Just 2 years ago, the water was 100 feet deep, and you could see people out on the water in boats. Now, it's pretty much a bone-dry desert. The biggest water reservoirs in California, Lake Shasta, Lake Oroville, and Trinity Lake, are below 30% storage capacity. The yellow sand line shows where water used to be. 11 trillion gallons of water are now gone from surface water reservoirs across the state. The amount of water that's gone from California's water storage could supply every U.S. household for more than a year. You're about to find out why top-level scientists say this drought will be felt by every American citizen. Their research suggests our way of life is about to change dramatically. How you protect your family and home, how you do your shopping, how you put food on your kids' table. You'll discover why scientists say we're very close to the collapse of our entire food supply system. I will expose how the government is secretly preparing for this nightmare scenario, why Obama will inevitably blame greenhouse gases and global warming for this disaster, and why this false flag operation may leave 90% of American families totally dependent on our government. The wheels that will implement these changes are already in motion, because, as you'll see, everything will happen very, very soon.
Climate change, climate chaos, and I said that we had 500 days to avoid climate chaos, and I know that President Obama and John Kerry himself are committed on this subject.
My name is Frank Tanner. I've been an investigative journalist for over 23 years, and I've spent most of my life getting the real facts behind major natural disasters. I documented the deadly earthquake in Haiti and the aftermath of the tsunami that hit Japan in March of 2011. I've worked to expose the criminal incompetence of FEMA during Hurricanes Sandy and Katrina. But nothing in my entire career comes close to what I've uncovered while filming this report on the California drought.
They say you never miss the well till the water runs dry. Have I cried? I cried myself to sleep a lot of times, and I've lost weight.
Well, we go without showering, we can't flush our toilets, we can't wash our hands.
Do you think people are just going to pack up and leave?
What else do you have to do? Without water, you don't have anything.
There are many heartbreaking stories like these coming from California, and while these stories are all over local and national news, no one is telling people what is really happening, and why the western coast may not receive the rains it desperately needs. The answer to this lies to the north. This is the Arctic, a vast freezing cold expanse of land and water covered with ice. These ice sheets are what keep this area so cold, as they reflect much of the sunlight and heat back into space. This difference in temperature with the regions to the south, like the United States, generates a current of air known as the circumpolar vortex, jet stream, or polar winds, an immense counterclockwise swirling mass of cold air that blows over the Arctic. This circumpolar vortex, or polar winds, keep the masses of air to the south in constant circulation, making sure that no particular area of air stays in one place for long. They are like a giant conveyor belt, or like the heart of a human body that keeps the blood flowing. All this, however, is changing as we speak. Right now, the Arctic is getting warmer twice as fast as any other area on the planet. As the temperature difference decreases, the polar winds become weaker and their path wavier than ever before. In fact, on the northwest coast of the U.S., the winds have stopped, allowing warmer air to go much further north than usual and pushing cold air into the center and east coast of the U.S. This is why, for the past 2 years, we've seen extreme cold on the East Coast during the winter. This area of warm air created a blocking ridge, a region of high atmospheric pressure that disrupts typical wind and rain patterns in the atmosphere. What's truly scary is that usually blocking ridges don't last for more than a couple of days, as they're pushed out by atmospheric currents such as the polar winds. But this particular bloated bubble of high pressure has not moved for more than 2 years. That's why it was named the Ridiculously Resilient Ridge, or Triple R. Like a large boulder that has tumbled into a narrow stream, The Triple R diverted the flow of high-speed air currents known as the jet stream far to the north, causing Pacific storms to bypass not only California, but also Oregon and Washington. As a result, rain and snow that would normally fall on the West Coast were instead rerouted to Alaska and as far north as the Arctic Circle. Without the polar winds, the blocking ridge that is formed on the north of the West Coast is here to stay, which will make all the prayers for rain go unanswered for a very, very long time. However, this event was not unforeseeable. In 2004, the University of Santa Cruz, California, released a report based on climate models entitled Disappearing Arctic Sea Ice Reduces Available Water in the American West. This report accurately predicted that the melting Arctic will cause the high-pressure system that is blocking the path of storms to the west. This means that the California drought was accurately predicted, and its causes have been well known. In 11 years, a lot could have been done to mitigate the effects of this disaster, but the government has done nothing to address this problem that has become very, very real. It, however, has been very busy blaming global warming and greenhouse gases for climate change. As you are about to see, the greenhouse gas climate change story was invented for a very specific and dark purpose. It was Al Gore who made greenhouse gases and carbon footprint some of the most dreaded words in our vocabulary in his award-winning work of fiction called An Inconvenient Truth. The mass media ensured that the melting ice sheets became synonymous with global greenhouse emissions in the minds of most Americans. Huge investments were made to promote the greenhouse gas myth. The truth, however, is that the melting Arctic ice sheets have very little to do with human activity and everything to do with the Earth's rotation. A fact that's been known for over 40 years, but only recently cast aside. You probably haven't heard of Milutin Milankovic. He was a Serbian mathematician, astronomer, climatologist, geophysicist, particularly interested in what generates ice ages. During his research of over 30 years, he discovered that Earth's long-term climate changes are caused by the orbit of the Earth around the Sun. This is known today as Milankovitch cycles. His theory explained the ice ages occurring in the geographical past of the Earth and predicted the climate changes which can be expected in the future. Based on these facts, we know that right now our planet is between two ice ages, the last one ending 11,700 years ago. This means that global temperatures are near to their peaks everywhere around the globe, and the ice coverage around both poles is about to reach its lowest point. This is a completely natural phenomenon, generated by the rotation of the Earth, and greenhouse gases and human activity have very little to do with it. Tell this to the nearly 80% of Americans who believe in greenhouse gas-induced climate change, and some might even lynch you. The first stage of their dark agenda was making U.S. citizens believe in the greenhouse global warming myth. The massive media propaganda machine has done a superb job of indoctrination. The real purpose of this global deception is to plant the seed of guilt in each of us. And when the consequences of the Western megadrought really start kicking in, the gullible masses, blaming themselves for not reducing their carbon footprint, will happily comply with what our government has in store for them. And that moment is very, very close.
We can expect disruptions to global agricultural sector that will threaten job security for millions of farmers and undermine food security for millions of families.
Already, without rains or snow in winter, Californians have to resort to groundwater pumping for water. Some expect groundwater will account for virtually every drop of the state's fresh water supply by year's end. But of course, this creates a huge problem, because when the groundwater is gone, it's gone for good. Those aquifers took centuries to fill up, and now they're being drained at a staggering rate. Jay Famiglietti, the senior water scientist at the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory at the California Institute of Technology, recently warned Californians that the state has only 1 year's worth of water remaining if the drought does not end soon. And as you've seen, the chances of that happening are close to 0%. Lynn Wilson is the academic chair at Kaplan University, and she serves on the climate change delegation in the United Nations. Civilizations in the past have had to migrate out of areas of drought, she said in a CNBC article. We may have to migrate people out of California. Hence the coming wave of recently bankrupt California climate refugees who will flood into neighboring states seeking water, low-cost housing, and entitlements. And if you live on the East Coast and think this is not a concern for you, you're missing the elephant in the room. More than 50% of all our fruits and vegetables are grown in the state of California. Given that California is one of the largest agricultural regions in the world, the effects of any drought, never mind the one that could last for centuries, are huge. About 80% of California's fresh water supply is used for agriculture. The cost of fruits and vegetables will skyrocket. And it's not just the fruits and vegetables. On January 1st, the U.S. cattle herd hit a 61-year low of 89.3 million head of cattle. The underlying cause is the 5-year drought that has devastated the cattle industry out west. The only reason why you're not feeling the crippling effects of the drought in food prices is that farmers have taken much of the financial losses. But they can't last much longer. The tipping point is coming very soon. What follows after food hyperinflation is well documented and part 2 of Obama's sinister agenda. Take Venezuela as an example. With food inflation soaring at least 65%, murder rates are the second highest in the world. You can see in this video the chronic food shortage that has pushed prices up and many into a life of crime. Don't think the same can't happen right here. Food inflation can hit America too. Just consider this. An outbreak of the bird flu caused the cost of a carton of large eggs in the Midwest to jump nearly 17% to $1.39 a dozen from $1.19 since mid-April. Eggs used as ingredients in processed products like cake mix and mayonnaise have jumped 63% to $1.03 a dozen from 63 cents in the last 3 weeks. But this is just one food item. What would happen if half of our food disappears because of the drought? Are you ready for food price hyperinflation?
We can expect prolonged droughts and resource shortages, which have the potential to fan the flames of conflict.
Rising food prices always cause mass social unrest. Hunger turns people into beasts. Ever tried skipping 3 meals or more? It messes with your head. Skip 4 or 5 meals, and you get a full-blown revolution or a civil war. In Mexico in 2007, more than 75,000 of the poorest Mexicans took to the streets after the price of corn for tortillas went from 8 pesos to 10 pesos per kilo overnight. Syria experienced a scorching drought. From 2006 to 2011, farmers lost everything. Then, in March 2011, the Syrian civil war began. More than 300,000 died because of it. The Tunisian and Egyptian revolutions in 2011 were started by a rise in food prices, according to Robert Zoellick, president of the World Bank. The pattern has repeated itself over and over again. And if the NASA prediction comes true, our country is about to witness social unrest that will dwarf anything we've seen in Ferguson or Baltimore. At this moment, there are over 47 million people living on food stamps. What will happen when all of these people do not have enough money to buy food for their families? As you've already seen, the usual consequence is rioting on a massive scale. Make no mistake, Obama and his cronies are counting on this to happen, because at that moment, the final stage of their sinister plot will unfold. Already, Obama is setting the scene for military intervention in a situation linked to climate change, a national emergency like the Western megadrought.
Climate change will impact every country on the planet. No nation is immune. So I'm here today to say that climate change constitutes a serious threat to global security, an immediate risk to our national security. And make no mistake, it will impact how our military defends our country. And so we need to act, and we need to act now.
Coincidentally, the largest and most lengthy military exercise on U.S. soil takes place in the western part of the U.S. Starting July 15th and ending September 15th, Operation Jade Helm spans states including California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, and Colorado. Under the guise of military exercises, elite military units are covertly operating in the backyards of citizens. Heavy equipment is being transferred to the areas that will be hardest hit. Videos of columns of armored vehicles and tanks streaming across the roads and railways in the Southwest spread fear and unease. Alarmingly, the official purpose is to blend in with the population. One might ask, how is this preparing our soldiers to fight our enemies overseas? Mastering the human domain, that's the motto of Operation. The truth is, that human domain they're talking about is the western United States deprived of water, food, and flooded by millions of climate refugees. And their preparations go way further than this. On March 16, 2012, President Barack Obama issued Executive Order 13603, covering National Defense Resources Preparedness. The executive order provided the president with unprecedented new powers, such as declaring martial law, seizing private property, implementing the rationing of food, gasoline, and drugs, restarting peacetime conscription, and nationalizing American industry merely by declaring a national emergency, like the Western megadrought. Make no mistake, everything is happening right before your eyes. In July, right before the start of Jade Helm, a half-dozen Walmart stores were closed in the operational area. The official reason was plumbing issues. It takes less than 6 months to build a Walmart from the ground up. What kind of plumbing work are they actually doing here? The truth is that if the federal government required large man-made structures for any reason, it's hard to beat a mammoth Walmart store. With the buildings closed, windows boarded up, and parking lots roped off, training exercises are happening inside. Walmarts are being tested as disaster relief centers for the population, and the exercises are meant to train the military to guard and distribute what may become the only source of food for the population: FEMA rations. No good crisis should go to waste. The crisis brought by the Western megadrought will bring forced food rationing and martial law. Jade Helm is the last piece of the puzzle, the one thing that connects Obama's plan to use the military to protect us from the aftermath of the climate change story that's being repeated day after day. The dark path we've been set upon will reach its inevitable conclusion. Following Obama's orders, the military will crush the food riots and impose indefinite martial law. And those unprepared will be left to the mercy of FEMA and of other government agencies. I've personally witnessed FEMA's handling of Katrina and Sandy, and believe me, you don't want to be at the mercy of this government agency. If you need any proof, just watch the footage from New Orleans. The real America was built on the idea of self-reliance and freedom for every U.S. citizen. This sinister agenda will strip every U.S. citizen of both. This is what the final stage of this high-level conspiracy is all about. 90% of Americans will become dependent on the government for the most basic human need: food. The climate change story will come to completion. It is because you didn't reduce your carbon footprint that the California drought happened. Now that the food shortage has caused mass rioting, the government must step in and take over food production and distribution for your own good. The fact that no mass media outlet would run this report confirmed everything that was just presented to you as the truth that's being hidden away from the American people. As for me, researching this story made me come to a single conclusion. If I want my family to survive, I need my own food reserve. Standing in line for hours at a FEMA disaster relief center to receive a government handout is not the way I want to spend the next few years. But I know a true solution to the coming food crisis had to be self-sufficient, work year-round to provide a nutritious and healthy diet, be easy to build and maintain, and hide from intruders. I thought of the survival food recommended by survival experts, which means powdered, freeze-dried, smoked, or salted portions that usually taste like an old shoe. And these survival foods cost an arm and a leg. A 2 years' worth of supplies for a family of 4 costs nearly $15,000. And then I thought of just leaving the country. But this is where I was born, where I grew up, and where all my loved ones are. I was not going to just give up on my life here. It was then, on the last days of my investigation in California, that I met Bill Jackson. He had heard of my report on the California drought and sent me an email to meet him. He told me he had a story for me that needed to be told to every U.S. citizen concerned about the drought and the future security of their food supply. You see, Bill is a third-generation farmer living in San Joaquin County, California, one of the hardest-hit agricultural areas in California. He invited me to his home and told me that even with water restrictions and rationing in place, he had his own backyard miracle that could get him and his family through any disaster. From his tiny 300-square-foot backyard, every single month he was getting around 80 pounds of juicy tomatoes, 15 pounds of bell peppers, 60 pounds of delicious zucchini, 60 pounds of cucumbers, not to mention onions, beets, radishes, spinach, and even some carrots. On top of that, he was getting about 700 pounds of fish every single year. I could not believe it at first. What was his secret? He explained that he had installed an aquaponic garden system in his backyard that required very little water and gave huge yields for the amount of space it used. This food generation system provided fish and vegetables based on a symbiotic relationship between plants and fish. The way it works is simple. Plants purify the water for the fish, while the fish fertilize the plants with their waste. The result? Tasty fish and juicy vegetables, almost without lifting a finger. His system produces food 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, year after year. He showed me how this system worked almost automatically because there's no watering required as the system recycles water on its own. No fertilizer needed. The fish do all the work. And no advanced agricultural knowledge required. Amazingly, this system provided maximum yields for minimum space usage. This system is so space efficient that it can provide enough food for a family of 4 from a tiny 300-square-foot backyard. His system was not that unusual to people that lived outside the U.S. Palestinians are actually doing aquaponics on rooftops in an arid desert region to provide food for hundreds of people. And because this system takes such little space, they've been able to install it on rooftops and in basements. It's the only way they manage to feed the population during the embargoes that keep supplies from coming through. My next thought was that such a system would need a huge amount of water, but I was amazed to discover that aquaponics systems actually use 10% of the water used in conventional gardening, because all the water is recycled between the fish tank and the growing beds. The only water that is actually lost is through evaporation. You see, traditional agriculture loses 90% of irrigation water to soil infiltration. Most of the water winds up far below the roots of the plants and is therefore wasted. Bill explained that this is the reason why water restrictions imposed in California had little effect on him, as he already used just a tiny portion of the water that his neighbors use for their traditional gardens. He then told me how he grew his garden. 3 years ago, he decided to try out aquaponics and bought 2 grow beds and fish tanks online for $1,998.97. After seeing how much this system could produce, how little work was involved, and the massive savings on water, fertilizer, and time, he decided he wanted to expand to around 100 grow beds and fish tanks. But he didn't want to spend close to $100,000. In fact, he didn't even have the money for that. So he set to work on reverse engineering the build process to create his own system. He managed to build his first one for parts that cost him under $300, and the cost kept going down as he perfected the process. He said that he managed to get the cost down to under $150 for each grow bed and fish tank. This seemed like the perfect solution to the coming mass food shortage and hyperinflation, and a way to maintain independence in the face of the government takeover of the entire food system. A cheap, drought-proof, year-round, high-powered, self-sufficient food generator. that will provide the vitamin-rich, nutritious food desperately needed during the coming food shortage. And that's why he contacted me. He needed to spread the word so that Californians, and indeed anybody else, should secure their food supply by taking up aquaponics. I realized that this food system could help a lot of Americans stay off the path of total dependence that's been prepared for them. And after showing him the truth about the Western megadrought, he agreed that we needed to share everything he'd learned about building and maintaining an aquaponics system with as many people as possible. This is how Food for Freedom was born. A complete, take-you-by-the-hand blueprint to building your very own aquaponics garden so you can put your own food on the table in just a few weeks. No fancy jargon, no academic lingo, no technical mumbo-jumbo that will take an engineering degree to understand. Everything presented inside was gained through days of work and trial and error in order to slash the building cost and make it as newbie-friendly as possible. His promise is that you'll be able to build your own system in as little as 5 hours, even if you've never held a hammer in your life. This is a foolproof, dirt-cheap shortcut to obtaining food independence. Building an aquaponics system can be super easy and fun if you follow the instructions. In this program, we'll show the perfect alternative to a $4,000 fish tank. At $65, this is the most expensive part of the system, but sometimes it's even free to collect. This system will help you and your family to be supplied with nutritious food while the unsuspecting and gullible fight over scraps. The way I see it is this is the only way to secure your food independence. The Food for Freedom program contains all the knowledge you need to get your system up and running and operate it daily using at most 5 minutes of your time. You'll also discover how to grow the biggest, tastiest tomatoes, radishes, broccoli, and carrots. Just follow the simple instructions and you'll never have to spend a dime to get your favorite vegetables. And because there are no pesticides or chemicals involved, you'll taste their full natural flavors. The best thing about using aquaponics is that you can start using it the moment it's ready, and it will slash your grocery bill by 80% in the first 6 weeks. That adds up to thousands of dollars in savings over a couple of months. Just another great part about being self-sufficient. Keep in mind that you don't need to have more than 300 square feet to feed a family of 6. This system will work for you even if you have to use it on a rooftop or place it in the garage or the basement. As long as you have some source of light, the vegetables will grow and the fish will feed them. Now, Bill and I wanted to make sure you can get the most out of your Food for Freedom program and be completely satisfied with your investment. That's why we're also adding 4 exclusive bonuses into this bundle that are only available today. These 4 special bonuses are designed to complement Food for Freedom in every possible way. Bonus number 1 is called DIY Greenhouse Blueprint. If you plan on setting up the Food for Freedom outside your home, or if you require a massive amount of food, then building a greenhouse is the best solution. Inside, you'll find an easy step-by-step guide to setting up a greenhouse for your aquaponic garden. The greenhouse will shelter your garden even if you live in extremely cold areas or during winter. You won't believe how simple it is to set up this custom-made enclosure for your Food for Freedom system, even if you've never built a DIY project in your life. And don't worry about the cost. Members of our community have managed to build their greenhouses for under $57. Bonus number 2 is called Simple Survival Canning. Canning is the best way to create a long-term supply of food by taking advantage of what today is in excess. Many people who've tried the Food for Freedom system discovered that it generated more food that they actually needed, and sometimes it was just wasted because they lacked the knowledge to properly store it. This is what Simple Survival Canning is all about. It shows you the easy methods used to store a surplus of food, so you'll never have to worry about not having enough to put on the table. Bonus number 3 is called Setting Up Your Survival Seed Bank. It's not all about the harvesting. You need to keep some seeds to grow your new plants, and inside you'll discover exactly how to do it. You'll learn how to pick the best types of seeds for your aquaponic garden so that you will grow the healthiest and most resilient plants. Timing is everything. That includes knowing when to use your survival seed bank, and we'll share the farming secrets of when and how to harvest for the best results. The last bonus that will complete your self-sustaining food stockpile is called Container Garden Secrets. If you choose to expand your garden beyond aquaponics, you need to be armed with the knowledge and secrets of container gardening. This guide is jam-packed with insider information, like what type of soil to use in your garden, how picking the materials of the pot influences the plant itself, what plants need more sun, and what plants thrive in the shade. Everything is designed to make sure you'll have a delicious, varied, and nutritious harvest every time. Bill and I are committed to get aquaponics to as many Americans as possible before it's too late, so we looked at the options available on the market. Right now, a retail aquaponics system with 2 grow beds and fish tanks will cost you anywhere between $1,500 and $4,000 plus shipping, and you would still have to build it on your own. I already covered survival food. A 2 years' worth of supply for a family of 4 costs as much as $15,000, and the space to store this amount would comfortably fit 8 aquaponic grow beds and their fish tanks that would provide you a constantly replenishing supply of fresh food daily. These 2 options for food are wildly expensive. Our next thought was turning this into a weekend seminar. Some survival experts charge as much as $1,000 a seat for sharing tips on having food during a disaster and making a huge profit off the backs of citizens frightened about our country's future and their food security. But having seminars would defy the purpose of reaching out to as many people as possible, and the price would keep most Americans in the dark about the real threat to their food security and the simple solution they could implement right now. Food is a basic human need and should be something everyone can afford. We needed to spread the word of what's coming and provide the solution as cheaply as possible. So, this complete aquaponics food system blueprint will not cost you $1,000, $500, or $100. Our goal is to reach out to as many people as possible. So we set the price at the amount we needed to keep this special report online and to spread the message to all other patriots. This might sound crazy, but we've set the price for this self-sustained, self-sufficient food generator at just $37. And really, the price doesn't even matter. And there are 2 reasons for that. First, I'm so confident that you'll be completely satisfied with Food for Freedom that you'll have a full 60-day money-back guarantee trial period. Here's how this works. Just say maybe to the Food for Freedom program. Go through the program and the bonuses. Use the instructions to build your aquaponics system. And if you have any reason for being unhappy with your homemade aquaponics system, you can get a refund in as little as 48 hours. No questions asked. It's as simple as that, and you risk nothing. Secondly, this system is designed to reduce your food bill by up to 75% in the first few weeks. This means that this is one of the few investments you'll ever get to make that pays for itself in less than 3 months. The investments you make in Food for Freedom, the building materials and the plants and fish will be recovered as you harvest them and slash your food bill. Also, keep in mind that in a crisis situation, there's almost nothing that food can't pay for. Gold, guns, ammunition, people to work for food. Anything you need can be acquired if you have food. When the unthinkable happens, roles in society are reversed. Being able to read fancy spreadsheets might be useful today, but in a crashing society, it will put you at the bottom of the food chain. Adaptability, strength, and the ability to feed yourself and others, that's what makes you a true leader. It will be hard to find a better proposition than this. Simply click the link below, enter your credit card details, and you'll receive the full Food for Freedom package so you can get started right away. The thing is this, if you really want to ensure your food security, you'll have to move fast. If this FEMA, the NSA, or any other government agency finds out about this website, they'll take it down. Already, I've been targeted by climate change fanatics who have tried to hack it. These people are so determined that I've even received death threats on my email. So far, I don't think any of these are serious, but if I really feel that my life is in danger, I will take this program down myself. You now know the truth about the Western megadrought, the billion-dollar manipulation behind the greenhouse gas climate change hoax, and its final sinister purpose in this presentation. You've seen the scenario being set up in the media, and you've seen how our government uses the engineered food crisis to take over the entire U.S. food supply to have 90% of its citizens fully dependent on handouts, erasing every trace of the self-sufficiency from the American spirit that made this country great. And you've seen why having an aquaponics system is the best way to prepare, and how you can have fresh, organic food 365 days a year, without fertilizer, without hard work, and almost without any water. Now, it's time to make a choice. There are 3 paths ahead of you. The first choice, doing nothing, might seem like the easiest one right now. I, like many others, pray the drought would just end. But you've seen the irrefutable scientific evidence that shows this crisis will not end for many years. And I wish I could think that the government would have the people's best interest in mind. But over the past few years, we've seen it deceive, manipulate, and take our freedoms away. When Katrina hit, those who were unprepared suffered immensely, and their families were left with no food, no water, and at the mercy of FEMA. You don't want to end up like that. The second option is to try to do it all by yourself. You would have to figure out how to make this system all by yourself, and how and which plants and fish to grow. Bill learned everything about this system during a period of 4 years. That's a lot of time, and by the looks of the Western megadrought, you might not have that time. Or you could just buy an aquaponics system. If you happen to have $2,000 lying around for a grow bed and a fish tank, and that's not nearly enough to ensure your food stability. Or you can just give Food for Freedom, the complete blueprint towards food self-sufficiency, a try. A system that's easy to build and use, requires almost no work and maintenance, slashes your grocery bills, and will provide a healthy, natural, vitamin-rich food for you and your family during any natural disaster. This is not a 1-year, 2-year, or 5-year solution to your food security. This is a lifelong lasting food generator that uses very little water and needs almost zero work. In fact, catching the fish can be a lot of fun for you and your grandchildren. But the best thing about it is that you can rest assured that you and your family will never depend on others for the most basic human need. That's why I'm confident that when you look back a couple of months from now, you'll be completely satisfied with the investment you made today. Just imagine this. How many people are totally reliant on Walmart or other stores for what they put on their table? How shocked will they be to discover that food prices went up by 250% overnight? How desperate they'll become when every meal means a struggle, standing in line for FEMA rations for many hours. How many will join rioting and chaos on the streets because there's not enough to feed their family? How many will have to explain to their children, with teary eyes from hunger, that there's nothing to eat for dinner? Already, in other parts of the world, this is happening. And all of this is coming to America very, very soon. While all of this is going on, you could feel safe knowing that you have your homegrown supply of fresh fish and tomatoes, broccoli, carrots, or whatever your heart desires. Knowing that you took the right decision today for yourself and for your entire family, that they see you as their real-life hero for having the foresight to protect their future by making a simple investment. That you are self-sufficient, independent, and the master of your own future. All this is just one click away. Frequently asked questions. Haven't made your choice yet? Please give me a moment to address some of the questions you might have. Why aren't more people using aquaponics, in California for instance, if this is such an efficient way of growing food? There are many reasons for this. 1. This system is not very widely known. I have no doubt that if more people actually knew the benefits of this system, they would start using it. Of course, there's a huge time lag between the moment it becomes widespread knowledge and the moment it becomes widely used. Also, this knowledge is being suppressed. The government wants you dependent. Walmart wants you dependent. Big agricultural corporations like Monsanto want you dependent on their frankenfoods. The wide use of this system would be their worst nightmare. 2. The price of retail aquaponics systems with just 2 grow beds and fish tanks to go with them is $2,000 or more. How many people would make this investment when their food supply is just a short trip to Walmart? But as you've seen, all of this is about to change dramatically. 3. No one using this system will openly brag about it. I advise you to do the same. If a food crisis happens, it's everybody for himself, and those who are prepared don't want to become targets. Will this be hard to make? Building your first grow bed and attaching it to a fish tank takes about 2 hours using the Food for Freedom blueprint. It does not require advanced DIY skills or strength, and you don't have to be a doctor in agriculture to set it up. It's all explained in plain English in our Take You by the Hand guide. The parts are easy to get and are very cheap. It costs close to 10 times less than you would pay for a retail system. That's $100 for each grow bed and fish tank. Even your children can pitch in and help you build it, and it will be a very fun way to spend an afternoon. You've mentioned savings on the monthly food bills. Could you tell me more? Aquaponics is a self-sufficient food generation system. You could live off the fish and vegetables it provides easily, as you'll have all the protein and vitamins required in our daily diets. And the second you start harvesting, your bills will come down to almost zero. This means thousands of dollars a year right now. And when food hyperinflation strikes, having a source of food will be more valuable than owning a gold mine. Will I manage to use this if I have little space available? This is a system that provides food even if you have only a tiny space available. In fact, this is one of the requirements we had from the start. You can make use of any space: a balcony, a basement, a backyard, a rooftop. And that's because aquaponics can be done vertically, too. There is no other more efficient way to grow food. Will this work if I live up north where the climate is colder? Sure. If you can't install it in your home, we've included a guide to creating a special greenhouse for your aquaponics system. Can I feed an entire family with this? The beautiful thing about Food for Freedom is that you can build it to your exact specifications. You can use it to feed a family of 3 or a family of 10, according to your needs. Are there any risks involved? No, and this is for 2 reasons. 1, you're covered by my ironclad 60-day money-back guarantee. If for any reason you're not satisfied with your investment, a full refund is just 4 clicks away, and you don't need to provide us with any reason to do so. I'm that confident that this is the best self-sufficient solution to your food security. 2, by using this system, you're actually making money. Just think of your food bill going down by 75 to 100% after your first harvest. How much would you be able to save? Will it not pay for itself many times over? It's time to take your food security into your hands. It's time to make the right investment. It's time to look after your future. Click the Buy button